and the heritage of the Red Rose, and one of his lasting legacies is the museum that will be located inside the new stand at Emirates Old Trafford in the future. David's influence and wise counsel extended beyond Lancashire and the wider cricket community. He was a widely acclaimed business leader who made a full contribution to the growth and development of our region over the last 25 years. He was also a source of constant support and counsel to me personally, particularly as the city tried to navigate many challenges. David will be hugely missed by so many people. We owe it to him that recover from this crisis, as we surely will. We will remain steadfast to our values and ensure that Lancashire Cricket Club and its facilities reach their full potential and remain a source of pride to everyone. We extend our sincere condolences to all the families and friends of those we have lost since our last AGM. I ask you to stand and observe a moment's silence in their memory. Thank you.
I've agreed with Sir Howard that I will take over now, chairing the rest of the meeting. And I'd like to commence by asking the Secretary to read out apologies that have been received for absence.
The only apology received was from Board Member Andrew Flintoff.
Thank you. Turning to the agenda for the meeting, item 1A is about the minutes of the AGM held on the 2nd of May 2019, which have been circulated to members. I can report that no questions have been received on the minutes, and I now propose that they be signed as a correct record. Item 1B is matters arising from the minutes, and there are no matters arising from the minutes that have been reported and which are not on the agenda. So I propose to move on. And I'll now reach the point where I can make my statement to the members. So to the members, I'd like to say good evening. I'm really sorry that the members can't join us here in person. We were hoping to have our usual complement of well over 100 members here in person, but as Lee's reported, sadly the restrictions mean that that's not possible. And we have to deliver the AGM in this hybrid manner with the on-site panel and board and executive team here in the 1864 suite and members joining us virtually. I'd like to start by thanking the members and paying tribute to them for their fantastic support, patience and understanding when there's been no cricket that they can attend. We've all been in this together. We're a great members club and your help this year is really appreciated, and I thank you all most sincerely. Let me give you a little bit of structure to the comments I'm going to be making. I'm going to focus first of all on the difficulties of these past few months. I'll then have a brief look back to 2019 before turning to the behind closed doors cricket that we have been hosting here this summer. Then a few words on our cricket performance this summer, and then finally a few words about our future. So I'm going to start by taking us back to the beginning of April, the very devastating loss of David Hodgkin. But if that wasn't enough to deal with, the club back at that time was working out how to move its staff to remote working from home, with an eye on everybody's health and well-being, and keeping everybody safe. We sent almost everyone home, but made sure to keep in touch with everyone and ensure they're safe and well. Some staff have obviously returned to work during the summer, some have been on furlough. We had no positive COVID tests until last month, but we have now had 4, 2 of whom have returned to work, 2 are finalising their self-isolation, but to date are well. But this is good news. We've had no serious COVID problems, But in how we've managed COVID, I want to call out three names, which is a little bit of a running theme through my commentary. I want to call out quite a few people today. So first of all, Joanne Hunt, our HR director. She leads everything people related. She's quietly got through what must have seemed a lifetime's work with calm professionalism, leading, for example, on all COVID accreditation and testing. Ian McIntosh is our COVID officer, who wrote and managed all the essential risk assessments and was our expert on all the guidance and protocols. And third, Becky Hartley, who was parachuted in from our marketing team and did an excellent job in ensuring we had all the documentation necessary to satisfy all the many requirements we had to meet. On top of the COVID challenges, the financial challenges facing the club were extraordinary. The club has been through financial challenges before, which many members will remember, prior, of course, to stadium redevelopment, but this was quite different. It was a rapid cliff-edge drop of revenues as our hotel and conference business ground to a halt, with a strong likelihood at that point of no cricket happening at all during 2020. The speed with which this happened took us all by surprise, and our budget of £4 million operating profit for this year was effectively wiped out in the space of 5 days. Daniel Gidney, Lee Morgan and I put together 4 immediate cash flow model scenarios for the remainder of the year, with varying trigger points for emergency actions to ensure the ongoing survival of the club. It's worth emphasising this point. We were at that point thinking, how on earth are we going to survive? The scenarios covered everything from no cricket, some hotels, some conferencing, and then also 2021 international matches not going on sale. The first thing to mention in this respect is the help and support that we receive from our bankers, not something you would normally hear a chairman say. Metro Bank, who helped us with a refinancing back in spring 2019, and it was a real game changer for the club. Banking partner that's bought into our growth plans and overall vision and halved our interest burden at the same time. Although words of support from bankers don't always get followed up, with Metro, they contacted us in late March to tell us, don't worry, we're with you. And they've supported us at every point since because they believe we have a strong long-term underlying business. They've waived covenants, they've instigated capital repayments holiday, given us additional working capital support. Just ask, they've said. So they've been brilliant. There were 3 core elements that enabled us to get through the summer before we knew that BCD being behind closed doors cricket, would kick in. Without this combination, we probably wouldn't have run out of cash in July. Firstly, Metro Bank, the refinancing of the relationship. Secondly, the government support through business rates and VAT relief and the furlough scheme. The third element, though, was our record financial returns from 2019, which had rebuilt our balance sheet and provided a cash cushion that helped us through. I'd also like to thank, looking back over those few months, the club's content and communications for their work during the last 6 months. I said from the outset that it was hugely important that we communicate with our members and supporters in a timely, informative and relevant fashion, and that was made even more important during recent times. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the Lancashire Legends series hosted by the brilliant Warren Heck, which features so many of our fantastic former and current players. To listen to the likes of Wazim Akram, Neil Fairbrother, the David Hughes, Farrell Engineer and James Anderson amongst others was a joy, and I'm sure everyone else enjoyed them too. The players and the members' representative group also got heavily involved with calls to members, whilst we also ran home workouts delivered by the squad for our age group squads. There were online coaching tips for recreational players, Q&As with players, and the excellent Friday night in, and lots of other engaging content. So turning to 2019, and just a brief review of 2019. Normally in an AGM we would be talking about this at great length, but other things have put this in perspective. But 2019 was an astonishing year, breaking all records for the club. 34 million turnover and a £7.5 million operating profit. To be selected to host more days in a Cricket World Cup than other venues. The first on home soil for 20 years was the Cricket World Cup, was an accolade itself, but then to go and deliver it was a matter of great pride for the club as a whole. Emirates Old Trafford really put itself on the map. The India-Pakistan match was a highlight, an estimated global TV audience of over 1 billion. This really was an enormous day. And the Cricket World Cup was estimated to have delivered between £20 and £30 million for the wider economy of the North West. And if that wasn't enough, to then put our first Ashes on in 6 years on top was really fantastic. With over 100,000 fans coming through the door for a test match is still a sight to behold in the UK in any year. So, what saved our summer this year? Well, the short answer is getting Lancashire on the field playing cricket, and more to follow on that shortly. But this wasn't a given at all. Special credit must go to Sarah McManus and Ian McIntosh, who threw themselves into getting Liverpool COVID compliant. 2 T20 matches, a Bob Willis Trophy match and 2 Rachel Hayo Flint matches were all delivered safely. But securing behind closed doors contract with the ECB has been critical to this year. The key to this was the decision back in 2014 to develop a new 150-bed hotel Hilton on this site. Without that vision back then and the execution, we would not have hosted an astonishing 21 days of international cricket this year. Put that 21 in perspective, we normally host between 2 and 6 days of international cricket in any one year. Much credit must go to Steve Davis. Steve joined us in April after 15 years with Merlin Entertainments as our new operations director and had to start working from home from day one. He immediately put together a 50-page detailed plan of how we could potentially deliver a biosecure bubble. I can't thank all of the team personally that have worked during the bubble in very challenging circumstances, but I would like to formally commend the BCD team to the members for an astonishing effort this year. Having said that, I will pick out a few specific people. We received excellent feedback for our food that seemed to be one of the main areas that made us stand head and shoulders above the Aegeus Bowl. From a hotel point of view, we had to keep all broadcasters happy. And Liam Rutherford led that team and delivered day after day with many comments saying they would definitely be coming back here. From a conference point of view, Nick Ashurst had the challenge to feed all the teams, which meant listening to specific requests, delivering to a high standard. West Indies were in love with his red pea soup and demanded that almost every day, whilst the Pakistanis were particularly pleased with the rotis. Gareth John led the food and beverage service. Public health saw this as the highest risk area and the one area that may have stopped behind closed doors cricket from happening. Gareth proved that great planning and preparations could see us through. Also, Sophie Atterley, our hotel general manager, who had to deal with 4 different touring teams, multiple broadcasters, none of whom you could describe as low maintenance. We've had incredibly positive feedback from all the international teams throughout the summer, a fantastic achievement by Sophie and the hotel team. I'd also like to thank Liz Cooper and the commercial team. Despite many challenges, the delivery of so many broadcast benefits this year to our commercial partners has enabled us to retain the vast majority of those commercial revenues. This has been so important to the club, particularly this year. Leadership of all of this has been at a premium these last few months, and Daniel Gidney, our chief exec, has been excellent from day one of the crisis. He has been indefatigable and has pushed hard every day to protect our staff, protect the club, and get cricket played safely. He has irritated the hell out of many people, but always in the club's interests, and I thank him very much on behalf of the whole board. Finally, there's one last person that I want to recognise more formally today. With David's sad passing, the board have decided to create the annual David Hodgkiss Award to recognise an above and beyond outstanding contribution to Lancashire cricket. The inaugural recipient of this award goes to an individual that has worked for the club for 30 years. No cricket ground in the world has ever developed 3 back-to-back test pitches, brackets that delivered a 3-0 winning result for England. To go beyond the Cricket World Cup year requirement of pitches would normally sound ridiculous. This year we delivered 10. So it gives me great pleasure to award the inaugural David Hodgkiss Award in 2020 to our head groundsman, Matt Merchant. Now, Matt can't be here with us today, unfortunately. I have the award here. So you can see it does physically exist. And as and when the opportunity arises, we'll be passing it to Matt, and he wins the award for the first year, and we will have an honours board for this, I think, Mr. Gidney. And Matt will be the first name to appear. He's there on screen. Is he speaking to us as well? Let's have a round of applause for that. I look forward to the day when I can present that to you, Matt, shortly. Turning to cricket, in April and May, the prospects of Lancashire playing any domestic cricket at all this summer looked extremely doubtful. However, due to the perseverance and enthusiasm of Lancashire and the majority of counties and the ECB, a truncated season of 5 four-day matches under the banner of the Bob Willis Trophy and 10 Group T20 Blast games, followed by finals, was conceived. The challenges have been met and the experiences gained by the playing staff and coaches have been tremendous. Credit must go to our Director of Cricket, our coaches in the backroom for their energy, enthusiasm and creativity. Paul Allett, Glenn Chappell, Mark Chilton, Chris Bembo, Carl Cricken and the captain Dane Villas have all worked tirelessly to make this truncated season a success. Tom Webster's fitness programme have done much to maintain morale and enthusiasm, especially through lockdown. Particular credit should be given to Sam Burns, so much more than our lead physiotherapist in these COVID-restricted times. His attention to detail on all things medical and in safeguarding us all has been remarkable. We were not allowed to use Emirates Old Trafford and we based ourselves to practice and training at Chester Boughton Hall, and our thanks go to all concerned there for their help and support. We made the decision to mutually cancel all our overseas players' contracts for the summer, and we provided 7 players to the various England bubbles. We relished James Anderson's 600th Test wicket and Josh Butler's all-round performances, and we congratulate Keane Jennings, Matthew Parkinson, Liam Livingston, Saki Mahmood and Richard Gleeson for their part in England's operation over the course of the summer. Of course, being without this senior core for periods through the summer was, whilst being a cause for celebration, because that is what we do, we produce England players, also provided opportunity and experience for our younger players too. First team debuts were given to George Balderson, George Burrows, Tom Hartley, George Lavelle, Jack Morley and Ed Moulton. Their performances were greatly encouraging, and our Bob Willis Trophy win over Derbyshire at Liverpool was one of the most heartening of the summer. Our emphasis on youth and homegrown talent is obvious for all to see. There is so much promise and talent in our squad which bodes well for the future. Our T20 campaign initially produced some exhilarating cricket with 5 wins in quick succession. The thrill of beating Yorkshire at home and away never dies, but was tempered by not being able to secure a home tie in the quarter-finals. Nonetheless, this was another fine achievement by a young and essentially inexperienced team. We all know how the week ended, but I will look back on Hove with a great deal of pleasure. I thought that was a brilliant win. Women and girls cricket has taken a giant leap forward this year with the implementation of the Women's Elite Domestic Structure. Full-time staff are gradually being brought on board to support and administer the new structure. Female cricketers will greatly benefit from this increased investment and regional approach to the player pathway. This has seen Lancashire, Cheshire and Cumbria come together to form a regional team, the Thunder, which competed in the Rachel Hayo Flint Trophy this year. Having led the side this year, we're delighted to formally announce Paul Shaw as the new head coach on a permanent contract. Finally, on cricket, Lancashire was one of the few counties to embark on a programme of second 11, academy and age group cricket, which was extremely well received by all concerned, particularly our next generation of young cricketers. Despite the COVID challenges, this was a hugely worthwhile experience with all our age group squads, both boys and girls, having match and practice experience through August and September. Overall, it's been a remarkable and tumultuous season, but our efforts on the field across all teams and age ranges has been beneficial, rewarding and gratifying. Looking to the future, another success story this summer has been our significantly enhanced live stream, which I'm sure everyone at home will have watched at some point in the summer. The increased number of cameras and production, particularly for the Vitality Blast fixtures, has been excellent, and this is something we will continue to improve on looking ahead to next year as we develop our Lancashire Cricket TV platform. The club has streamed all non-televised fixtures this year with a total viewership of 2.4 million. 1.8 million views were from the T20 fixtures, quite extraordinary numbers which show the size of the audience that's interested in county cricket and especially Lancashire cricket. The games have been streamed simultaneously across Facebook Live, YouTube and the Lancashire website. In another first, and this is a signal for the future, we've become the first county to stream its fixtures to India, which is another exciting step forward as part of our India strategy we're progressing with. Thanks to you, James Price and Christian Malarkey, for making this happen. So, what about the future? We have some short-term challenges. The next 12 to 18 months will be very challenging, notwithstanding the successes of 2019 and the hosting of behind closed doors cricket this year. The government announcement to restrict business event capacities to 30 for the next 6 months has significantly impacted the club's ability to generate revenues over the winter. Conference and events and hotel business over the next 12 months was forecast to be over £9 million. We're now looking at less than half of that, and we're having to put in place a number of measures to support us through this difficult period. The good news is we still have much to look forward to. The club survived world wars before, recessions, developers' legal actions, and we always come through it. We're all hopeful of a vaccine or testing regime that will enable the return of crowds to stadia in 2021 for our domestic and international cricket. Our peak cycle for conferences is October to December, and we're hopeful that COVID permitting, the fourth quarter next year will see our business start to return to 2019 levels prior to a full recovery in 2022. As we rebuild you'll be pleased to hear this is my final page. As we rebuild our finances, the club still has ambitions to complete the stadium development and replace the Red Rose building to provide new raised members' facilities and a new museum. This ask is undoubtedly harder, but the board are committed to exploring ways to achieve this for the members. It's been a great honour to step in very difficult circumstances to become your acting chairman. I've been proud of the energy and effort of everyone at the club, players, staff and members to help us get through. However, it was never my intention to stay on as chairman permanently, and the plan is to elect a new chairman for the board as soon as possible to be formally ratified at the 2021 AGM, which is anticipated to be within 6 months of this one. The last 6 months have not been easy or fun, but they have been made more bearable by the tremendous support of the exec team, their staff, and the board, for which I thank them. But I particularly want to thank Sir Howard Bernstein and James Sheridan, who have provided excellent advice to me personally. Last but not least, I want to place on record my thanks to Geoffrey Schindler, who is stepping down today, having been on the board since prehistoric times, but more on that a little bit later. Lancashire cricket, everybody, is a special place, full of special people, and it's this that will ensure the thriving of the Red Rose in many years to come. That's it from me for now, but thanks again to you, our members, for your support in these difficult times. Unfortunately, it's me next. We're going to move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is to receive and approve the annual report of the board and accounts of the club for the year ending 31st December 2019, together with the report of the auditors on those accounts. I've provided some commentary in respect to the 2019 accounts, and we also discussed it as well on the members' forum earlier in the year. It is now somewhat history, so I'm not proposing to add any more words in respect to the report and accounts, other than to formally propose the adoption of the report of the board and the financial statements for the year ending 31st December 2019, together with the auditor's report on those accounts. And I'll ask Geoffrey Schindler, please, to second the motion.
I have great pleasure, Mr. Chairman, in seconding the motion for the adoption of the report of the board and the financial statements for the year to 31 December 2019, together with the auditor's report. Thank you.
And I'll ask Lee, Secretary, to report the results of the proxy vote on this motion and confirm the outcome, please.
Yeah, there were 295 proxy returns, and of those 295, the number for the resolution was 294, the number against 1. As a simple majority is required, the motion is duly passed.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to item 4 on the agenda, and I'd like to hand over to James Sheridan to introduce the first item.
Okay, before we do item 4, I was just asked a few days ago to say a few words about Les' contribution to all things Lancashire cricket over the last 6 months. You've heard Les give his review of 2019 and bring us up to date. But when you begin to think about, or I've begun to think about Les' contribution since March, you know, I'm inevitably taken back to some very, very dark days. We'd lost David, which was an absolute hammer blow to many of us personally and to the business as a whole. All our 4 business streams were effectively closed. Domestic cricket was distinctly uncertain. International cricket was very uncertain. The conference and events business had been closed by the lockdown, and the hotel had been closed by the lockdown. We were staring down the barrel in many, many ways. So Les stepped up at a time when we just lost David. He took some gentle persuasion, we'll call it gentle persuasion, from Sir Howard and myself, And Les, you heard him say that his role has been temporary. He was always very clear with us that it was temporary. But he understood the task in hand, and Les absolutely grabbed hold of it with both hands. I think if I was thanking Les and he had a right of reply, he would very quickly say he was surrounded by an outstanding executive team, and I think that's a point that needs to be made, because Les would make it. But Les took on an awful lot of responsibility at a very, very, very difficult time. Clearly, as you've heard, things got better, and we know that we did get cricket. We got the critical behind closed doors arrangement with ECB, and everybody in this club stood up and delivered what needed to be delivered. Les steered us through some very, very troubled waters alongside Lee and Daniel. He dealt with financial challenges. He led the board and the exec team through some really serious risk analysis that we had to do. You know, we had the West Indies arrive to stay with us in the midst of the full-on lockdown. All credit to them for coming and doing what they did to make sure that we could start the international cricket summer. But as a venue, all of us had huge responsibilities personally and as a business when we started to do that. And Les led the way on that in some very detailed, tough discussions and indeed negotiations that Daniel led with the ECB, and led to the successful conclusion that we all know what took place. And Les never took his eye off our own domestic cricket. We knew we had a difficult situation with Emirates Old Trafford effectively rented out to England, if you like, during that period, and that meant that we didn't have access to it as a Lancashire squad. But that was always at the top of our agenda, to ensure that our cricket squad didn't suffer in amongst everything that we had to deliver, and that was right at the top of Les's agenda. He's dealt with everything in his when you get to know him, his straightforward, transparent, but above all, I'd say collaborative way. Les is extremely inclusive, and that has really helped everybody contribute in the way that they have over the last few months. So Les, you've always done what's the right thing for Lancashire cricket. You've got a little bit more to do yet, and I know you're keen to move aside once we've found our new chairman. But from all of the members, all of the staff, all of your fellow board members, thank you for everything you've done, Les. Thank you. So it's me, isn't it? Sorry, sorry, back on the agenda. So I'm delighted to propose the re-election to the board of Sarah Tompkins. Sarah's sat on the board for the last 3.5 years and brings to the board a unique mix of public sector and private sector experience. She's got deep skills in marketing, placemaking, community sports. She leads all of our governance efforts, and she also chairs our nominations committee, which has been critically important as we look to implement a diverse board strategy to bring on new members, and obviously to find a new chairman. Sarah has also had a huge impact on our major match bids, and has been a key part of the presentation team that goes down to London and presents to the ECB and explains why Lancashire cricket should host as many international games as it does. And early in her 3-year term, she was part of the team that successfully won the right to hold all those World Cup matches, the Ashes, and all the games that we've got contracted up to 2024. She performs an excellent role as a non-exec director on the board. She brings challenge, she brings a different perspective. She's always challenging people and also seeing if we can do things a different way, and is a really important member of the board. So absolutely delighted to propose Sarah for re-election.
Now I invite Maurice to second the proposal, please.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have great pleasure in seconding the proposal to re-elect to the board Sarah Tompkins.
And now we invite Lee to give us the results of the proxy vote on that motion, please.
Again, from 295 proxy papers received, the number in favour of the resolution was 282. Those against, 13. So again, simple majority, the motion was passed.
Thank you. Now I'd like to formally propose the election to the board of Rachel Downey be approved by members. Background on Rachel Downey was provided in the papers that were sent out to members in advance of the AGM. Rachel did a law degree, but then qualified as an accountant, so brings both legal and finance background. She's worked in many areas in the Northwest and has experience as chief executive of a business that's helping to regenerate parts of East Manchester, has worked in sport, in the Commonwealth Games, has worked in development and in strategic areas, and has already brought significant insights to the board while she's been co-opted. So I have no hesitation in recommending her proposal to be elected to the board. And I'd like to invite Sarah, please, to second the proposal.
I second the proposal. I think Rachel's skill set would absolutely add to the board's current skill set. And I remember one thing she said during the nominations committee interview, where she said sport is there to regenerate and support the local community, and I think that's needed more than ever. So I think she'd be a perfect addition to the board, and I second the nomination.
Thank you. I'll ask the Secretary to report the results of the proxy vote.
Of the 295 proxy forms received, in favour of the resolution 276, against 19. Motion passed, simple majority exceeded.
Thank you. I'm now going to move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the reappointment of the auditors. Hurst & Co have been auditors for now a number of years, it seems. Continue to do a great job for us, and I have no hesitation in proposing Hurst & Co as auditors of the club until the conclusion of the general meeting, which considers their report on the annual accounts of the club for the year end 31st December 2020. And I'd like to ask Geoffrey Schindler to second the proposal, please.
I have pleasure in seconding the proposal that Hurst & Co be appointed auditors of the club until the conclusion of the general meeting, which considers their report on the annual accounts of the club for the year ended 31 December 2020.
Thank you. And then ask the Secretary to report the results of the proxies.
Of 295 votes cast, 288 in favour, 7 against. Motion duly passed.
Thank you. I'm now going to move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is to do with 2 rule changes. These emanate from a governance review exercise and was detailed in the AGM papers that went out to the members. Because this is a change in the rules, this requires a 2/3 majority on the proxy vote. I would like to ask Sarah Tompkins, please, to introduce this item.
We are asking the members for permission to change the rules today so we can improve the diversity and makeup of our board. We want to actually grow the board by a couple of members, and we also want to amend the way the nomination committee is made up so that we can include the chair on the decision making of new board members going forward, which we think is a sensible solution. So hopefully the detail in the papers is enough and explains what we're trying to do, but ultimately our aim is to be top tier compliant of the Code of UK Governance to improve the way we are made up as a board and also hopefully improve the diversity of the board. We're starting that process by introducing Rachel to the team, but we have more ambitions around our diversity and equality of our board, so we fully represent the community of Lancashire that we serve. So I hope that the members agree to the changes so we can continue to improve our governance and support the Code of Good Governance. Thank you.
Can I invite Maurice Watkins to second the proposal, please?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have pleasure in seconding the adoption of the amendments of Rule 17.1.
Thank you. And can the Secretary confirm the results of the proxy vote?
Yeah, for Resolution 1, which is the proposal to change Rule 17.1, of 294 proxy forms received, 273 were in favour with 21 against. That's just short of 93%, which is comfortably in excess of the 2/3 majority, and therefore the motion is passed.
Thank you. And for the second rule change, Sarah, can you formally propose that, please?
Yes, I formally propose the adoption of the amendment of Rule 18.1.1.3. Thank you.
And can I invite James Sheridan to second, please?
Yeah, happy to second the proposal.
Can we have the results of the proxy vote?
Again, of 294 votes cast, 283 were in favour and 11 against, greater than 2/3 majority, and therefore the motion is again passed.
Thank you. Now move on to item 7 of any other business. And there were 2 items of any other business. As usual at the AGM, we have questions from members. And as you know, we invite members to submit questions in advance normally and then take questions from the floor. For me, it's always one of the most important parts of the club year that we face questions from the members, whether critical or otherwise. And I'm really sorry that we can't have members in the room to ask us questions in that form. But we have had many questions submitted in advance. And James Sheridan is going to chair this next section to take us through the Q&A. And then we have one other item of any other business that I will introduce afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Les. So as Les said, we've got a variety of questions that have been submitted before the meeting. So I'll take us through the questions and invite relevant members of the board or the exec team to provide our members with answers to the questions.
We just need to get the lectern clean.
Okay.
Can we not do it from our seats?
I think the person who's answering.
Okay.
So we're just cleaning the lectern to...
I think Lee is answering the further questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can.
Okay, all right. Okay, so question 1 from Philip Dooley. Did the recent staging of various international games prove to be a lucrative source of revenue for the club? So Lee, I think that's one for you.
Yes, the quick answer is yes. However, in no way does it compare with the levels of revenue you'd normally expect to receive from hosting that number of days of international cricket. The staging fees were much lower and all our costs were covered, but the main returns were generated from the ECB paying for sole use of the hotel for what turned out to be 3.5 months. That certainly was financially rewarding during a period when otherwise it would have been completely empty. The hosting of the matches was, however, beneficial in other ways. So it helped to protect broadcast revenues for the game as a whole. And we're talking about significant funds, money there that's not only helps us, but helps the game in general. It also enhanced our reputation as a club and a venue with the ECB and the outside world. And also protected a large proportion of our sponsorship revenue. So it was beneficial to the club in many, many ways.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Next question's from Richard Annandale. The club made a magnificent surplus of over £5 million for the year ended 31st December 2019. For this year, can the board give a provisional indication of 1, the anticipated surplus or deficit, and 2, the level of financial support that the club receives from the ECB?
It's still really difficult to fully ascertain how the year is going to turn out, because there's still so many significant unknowns. And currently we're doing as much as we can to keep costs down and maximise revenues where we can. The returns from behind closed doors cricket, as mentioned earlier, have significantly helped. However, the final quarter looks bleak, with hotel and conference and events revenue minimal at best. Despite this, we still expect to generate a trading profit. Certainly nowhere near what we anticipated and nothing like we achieved last year. But after you've taken off your depreciation and your financing costs, there is no doubt that we will generate a net loss this year. As far as the ECB is concerned, in addition to the contributions from behind closed doors cricket, they've accelerated a number of our monthly distributions across all of the counties to help short-term cash flow. And also we've received a significant one-off grant, which like many of the big international venues, has helped to plug the gap from what was a big deficit from not hosting international cricket during the year.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Next one again for you, Lee. This question's from Max Holmes. In the club's accounts for last season, there's no specific mention of any costs associated with the Sedbergh fixture. However, I note that under the item, quote, cricket match expenses, including hospitality, unquote, there's a figure of 8.45 million, a massive increase from the previous season's total of 2.23 million. It's unclear whether the 6 million increase in matchday expenditure is due to the losses incurred by staging the Sedbergh game. if we spent that much on it, I wish I was there for all 4 days. So to clear up this matter, is it possible for the club to furnish an item-by-item account for the costs for that fixture?
I suspect this question was a little tongue-in-cheek. However, I'll answer it in two ways. 2019 was a unique year for the club in terms of the volume and the quality of international cricket at Emirates Old Trafford. There were 6 World Cup matches and 5 days of Ashes cricket. In 2018, which is the year we're comparing against, there were only 2 days of international cricket. So we're comparing 11 to 2. So you'd expect a significant increase in costs across the 2 years. And you should also look at revenues when you look at costs. And you note that cricket match receipts increased from 2.6 to 9.3 million, which is very much proportionate to the cost increases referred to. At the same time, catering revenues, which are shown separately, rose by 1.7 million, and our perimeter advertising by 300,000 year on year. Second point, despite many misgivings about hosting a county game up at Sedbergh, it was a clear-cut success from a cricketing, attendance and profile perspective.
Okay.
Sorry,
Sorry, still going.
balance of my question. Got the answer. The rest of this question. The rest of the question. Yeah, I've not answered the question fully. I'm trying to find the.
I'll read out the rest of Lee's answer because I've got it here. Wherever we host championship cricket, we tend to lose money as attendances are low compared with the costs we have to carry. Without going into the nitty-gritty detail of all the income generated and costs incurred, Lee can report that the net loss on the game was £25,000. And the key additional costs for any outground game are temporary seating, player accommodation, external catering. Both these costs are incurred just the same as if we played at Liverpool, Blackpool or Southport. The only notable incremental costs of playing at Sedbergh were members' travel support and some increased staff travel and accommodation costs, which in total were in the region of £7,000.
Okay. Question here from Gary Clark. In the light of the current circumstances, does the club have any provision for carrying over Stephen Parry's benefit year to 2021? So I think, Lee, you were going to take this as well.
Yeah, so I found my place in my notes again, sorry about that. Yeah, there's definitely an opportunity to carry Stephen's benefit over to 2021, and the club will do whatever it can to support Stephen. However, at the present time, there's just so much uncertainty around that the nature of that support and what events we can host next year are uncertain. So we need to kind of just hold our horses on that, but we'll certainly help Stephen next year.
Okay, good. Okay, next question is from Kirti Sharma. Given that one of the core objectives of the board is to ensure that it's fully representative from a diversity and equality perspective, what are you doing to increase the BAME membership of your board so that it reflects the diversity of the local Lancashire community? How do you plan on gaining a more diverse membership if the board shows a lack of diversity? Will you share your equality and diversity strategy and outline how successful you've been in achieving this?
And I'll pick up that question. This is something that Sarah referred to briefly before. We're working towards the top-tier status of the Sport England's Code for Sports Governance. One of its provisions encourages skills and diversity in decision-making with a target, for example, of at least 30% gender diversity on boards. So a few years ago, as you know, we welcomed Sarah Tompkins to the board, and today we've welcomed Rachel Downey to the board. So that we're supporting more female voices and wider experience coming to the board. We have strong female representation on the exec team as well. As the AGM has just agreed, the board is also seeking to grow the number of board members, and because that's passed, there's now 2 more board vacancies, and there will be a further 2 board vacancies in 2021 as 2 board members come to the end of the term. So it's the board's ambition to fill these vacancies with the right skills and experience, alongside ensuring we are more representative of the Lancashire community we're proud to represent. We do aim to further increase gender diversity to reach the 30% mark and seek to improve representation from BAME communities so that we are more diverse. We are also working on a wider equality and diversity strategy and will produce and communicate more details on that in the near future.
Okay, thanks, Les. Next question is from Phil Orme. Why are Lancashire members denied the right to serve on the board of what clearly is a members' club? My understanding is that the board's nominations committee pre-approves all nominations for the board itself, making it impossible for independent individual members to stand for election to the board. This is clearly a closed shop, a situation that is totally unacceptable to the vast majority of members. What does the board intend to do about this iniquitous situation? Les, were you going to pick up on that?
Yeah, there was another question, James, on the same
sorry,
thing, so I was going to respond to both questions at the same time.
Okay, so the next question, link question is from Stuart Warburton. We're constantly asked to vote for members of the board without any alternative being provided, nor indeed an opportunity for members to suggest people who may be better suited for that position. Can the board make a commitment to more opportunities for members to really affect the board's makeup, rather than the current take it or leave it method?
For me, this was the most important question that was asked. We are a members' club and we want members to stand for election to the board. Our rules make provision for this. I actively encourage members to put themselves forward for board nomination. There is no denying members' right or opportunity to serve on our board, and the club rules are very clear on this. The key changes in the club rules enacted in 2013 was to put in place a nominations committee to enable the board to evolve into a more dynamic body to grow the club, develop the venue, grow and diversify revenue streams. It is important that all members bring skills that can make a positive contribution to the running of the club, and the nomination committee are given the remit to proactively seek candidates from both within and outside the existing membership. The process for members putting themselves forward for election has remained unchanged. They must go through an interview and vetting process with the nominations committee to ensure all candidates put up in front of members for election are of the desired quality to add to the skill set of the board, as well as demonstrating the required commitment to serve. The relevant section of the club rules is 18.5, which explains how a member can submit an election notice, stating his or her wish to stand for an election. Such notice must be signed by that individual and 2 other members who shall have been full members of the club for 3 consecutive years. This notice must be received by Lee Morgan as secretary no later than 31st January, immediately prior to the AGM. A member may only propose or second 1 candidate in each election to the board. So as I said in my introduction, I encourage members to put themselves forward. They should do so prior to 31st of January 2021 for consideration in our 2021 AGM.
Just a comment from me, there was a very interesting article in the Times last week where MCC is itself looking at how they vote. Members of, they call it a committee. They currently have 24 members of the committee and feel that their committee isn't working. It might be, for those of you who are interested, it might be worth digging out that article and having a read. Okay, next question is from David Maguire. Does the board consider that the MRG has been successful, and will it continue with it in the future? I think that's one you're going to answer, Daniel.
Thank you, James. Just making sure I'm clean and safe in one place compliant. Welcome to Emirates Old Trafford, everybody. Yes, thank you. The MRG have been a huge help to me and the executive personally. If I go back a few years before the MRG, members representative group was around. Very, very difficult for us to actually be able to have a good communication route with the members. It was very challenging with the number of members we had, and a number of our inquiries dropped through the net, and we definitely could have done better. I think the MRG have been a huge help. The MRG are always around. They take a lot of information in from members and actually make sure that, and trust me, when I'm in those meetings, the executive and myself are held to account on the members' behalf by the MRG. They give us a very, very tough but positive and constructive challenge. So without doubt, my life would be much harder without having a members' representative group. I think the other thing I'd like to say is, particularly this year, they played a fantastic role. Keaton's here tonight. He can talk about, I know Keaton phoned some members. I know a number of players phoned some members. And I know Warren did as well, some ex-players. But the MRG actually phoned a number of members. And when you've got some members who are elderly, on their own, in initial lockdown, very, very sad, mental health was being challenged, the MRG were absolutely fantastic and really lifted their day and made them feel valued and part of the bigger Red Rose family. So, yes, I couldn't talk about the MRG enough.
Okay, good. Stay there, because this is very close to your heart, this next question. So this is a question from John Taylor. Why can't 20% of members, or I guess it's looking at a 20% crowd, attend live matches with no visitors from opposing teams and no alcohol provided? Daniel.
Wow, what a great question that is. Yeah, it's been an incredibly challenging summer. Worked incredibly hard. Chairman's given Steve Davis a lot of credit for all of the work we did here to get behind closed doors cricket international sport. And, you know, let's just put that in perspective. The one thing that one wasn't mentioned was, yes, Premier League football came, but that was actually only stage 3, which was domestic return to guidance for domestic return sport. We hosted stage 4, which was the first international sport anywhere in the world, which I think, you know, huge credit to everybody on site and the ECB to get that away. The amount of time that took to get government to agree, just to put it in perspective, the West Indies team were due to get on a plane in 3 days. And at that point, I don't know if you remember, the only people who could stay in hotels were key workers, like care and NHS staff, fruit pickers, which was a bit bizarre, and then there was a rapid exception of elite sports people that got added to that. But 3 days before the West Indies got on a plane, backroom staff, strength and conditioning, physios, coaches, were not on that list. So they were expecting those individuals to fly from the Caribbean and not actually be able to stay in our hotel on site. So there was a lot of moving around. The challenges with this stuff, with actually getting primary legislation through the Commons, was very, very difficult. I think we've been working very hard to get stage 5, which is the final piece, which is the return of crowds. And as everybody's aware, we actually were due to host 1,000 people for a pilot for our penultimate T20 game against Durham. And sadly, with the number of cases in the northwest, that was very challenging, and Trafford Public Health asked us not to do it because they were particularly concerned about the impact on public transport. We're very, very focused on 21 getting the return of crowds. There is a big sports lobby. The Premier League particularly is very focused on the return of crowds. We've seen at the moment in the Bundesliga, there are crowds coming in safely. We proved with behind closed doors sport that we can have people in our stadium safely. I absolutely believe, having gone through what we went through, that there are ways, particularly the key risk point of the virus is 15 minutes, close contact within 2 metres, indoors with no ventilation. What we're talking about is people sitting 2 metres apart outside in the stadium. Now, I understand there is nervousness because of the Liverpool match, because of Cheltenham Festival. I understand there is nervousness, but I genuinely believe that if you look at actually where the risk is, that spectators watching sport outside can be done safely with everything that we've gone through this summer. This is a big issue for the UK government. We are fighting. The one thing that I can tell you is the Premier League are going for this, and I absolutely believe that we will have fans back in stadia in Emirates Old Trafford in the 2021 cricket season. How many? I don't know. But do you know what? At the moment, if I could have 1,000 or 1,500 and I could have the members in, that would be fantastic. So that's our focus. So challenging, but we're on it.
Okay. Linked to that, a couple of questions. Masood Shah asked, what are your plans for membership in the event that cricket remains behind closed doors next season? And David Maguire is asking, has the club given any consideration to contingency plans if members are not able to watch matches from the start of the 2021 season?
Yes, 2 very good questions. It's very challenging, this, and it's a question that's been asked by members and fans of sports clubs across the country. You know, it hurt us very much that we weren't able to host members and fans in Emirates Old Trafford this year. And I think we've had incredible support from the membership in terms of the premium member scheme, where a number of members were able to roll their membership over or even donate their membership for next year or convert it to a 2021 membership. It's absolutely fantastic. I also recognise that there's a number of members who couldn't afford to do that and did need a refund, and that's absolutely fine too. I think these are challenging times. I think we've needed all of the support that we've got from members. What we have done this year is put in place unrivaled streaming. This is the first year the broadcast deal changed, which meant that all non-broadcast matches on TV through Sky, we could stream ourselves. That's been had a massive positive impact. The numbers have been huge, particularly from India as well. And we know a number of members, particularly for the Bob Willis Trophy, have tuned in and have absolutely loved those matches. And it's something that a lot of clubs have just had 2 up and down cameras. We have invested significant money this year to have a 7-camera package, including ball follow, which is very challenging. And you'll note, if anybody was watching the first game at Worcester against Leicestershire, our ball follow perhaps wasn't quite as good as it could be. But if you look at our last 2020 game, it was fantastic. Specialist cameraman who knew how to do ball follow, 7-camera package. No other county put in that kind of investment or people to provide that kind of streaming service for members. And it's something for Lancashire TV that we want to build on. It was a start this year. We absolutely want to do it next year. But we will consider, like we did this year, opportunities for and take into account what games people can physically come and attend, what games they can get a high-quality streaming service for, and take that into account in the options that we will give to members. And those will include refunds, rollovers, exchanges, if we can't have crowds.
Okay, good. You've probably partially answered the next question, actually, but I'm going to read it anyway because it's a cracking question. Sorry, this is from Arthur Bird. As a 76-year-old resident of Devon, I do not get to Old Trafford very often. I've been very pleased and congratulate the board on the vast improvement to the stream/YouTube coverage of matches, which gives me great pleasure. I would like to know if some arrangement could be made using AGM members link to continue this coverage when the game has gone to Sky, which I do not have. I seem to be missing out on some very good matches. So you've perhaps explained the Sky TV thing, but the fact that we've reached Devon as well as India is great to see.
Well, I'd love to say, Arthur, if you are coming in via Zoom and watching this now, we'd love to have you up at a game at Emirates Old Trafford next season, travel restrictions permitting. I'd love to look after you personally. I think, sadly, I mean, Paul Allett's here. I'm sure he can ask his old friend Brian Henderson from Sky if he can consider that. But joking apart, I think Sky pay millions. This is one of the largest broadcast deals in sport, and one of those reasons why they've spent one of the biggest amounts outside of the Premier League in sport for a broadcasting deal is the exclusivity element. The one big change that happened this year, just to put this in perspective, is up until this year, even if Sky chose not to broadcast a match, we couldn't show that game, we couldn't stream it or anything. So even though Sky wouldn't take all of the games, we couldn't do anything with it. Sky were very generous this year with, even though they were paying massive amounts of money to the ECB, which came through to counties, they allowed non-broadcast games on Sky to be streamed. And that's fantastic, but that's probably the best we're going to get at this point.
But just to check, that's not just for this year, is it? That's in the new broadcast deal, so that will continue?
Up until the end of 2024.
Yeah. So we can stream any live game that Sky aren't showing.
Absolutely.
And
correct.
we're determined to do so. Okay, great.
I just need to get the podium clean while
you haven't finished yet.
Oh?
You've got one more. Don't run yet. It's only a quickie. Was a 2020 Lancashire yearbook produced? Sorry, this is a question from David Taylor. Was a 2020 Lancashire yearbook produced this year? As a bit of a stats man, I would really like the stats for a division-winning season. So, Daniel.
Yes, but it was only produced digitally this year. Should any member would like that digital link, please contact the club and we will send it straight to them.
So, okay, right, you are done now, Daniel. So, David, if you want that yearbook, send in an email and the guys will get you the email copy sent over to you so you can get on top of your stats. Okay. Yeah, I know we're going to clean the lectern, but I might read quite slowly so we dovetail nicely. So, section of questions for Paul Allett next. So this question is from Jeff Carter. Why does the Director of Cricket keep making misleading documented comments regarding the abandoned second 11 match at Southport? The wicket in question was laid and maintained by Lancashire as a second wicket and was not the usual county championship wicket used over many seasons. Paul is using it as a convenient, I don't think this bit's a question, by the way, this might be a statement. Paul is using it as a convenient excuse for taking a Specsavers good brand placement county championship match to Sedbergh, and should apologise for his misleading comments regarding the Southport ground not being suitable to stage a county match. So on that note, Paul, welcome to the AGM.
Well, thank you very much. That's a very nice question to have to answer first up. The Sedbergh question keeps on coming, doesn't it? Jeff, look, I apologise if you feel misled by my comments. There's no reason why you should, and I don't attempt to or want to mislead anybody. We really enjoy playing at Southport, Lancashire. Trafalgar Road is a really good venue, and as you're no doubt aware, we're normally pretty successful there. The comments about Southport that I've made have been consistent and concern the lack of full-time groundsmen that Southport were unable to provide. And the lack of that groundsman and the attention to the pitches certainly did not help in the preparation of the new pitch, and that resulted in the abandonment of that second team game in 2019. However, and this is good news, I'm pleased to say that under the new chairmanship at Southport, there are now 2 full-time groundsmen, and once again, the ground is firmly in our sights and on the radar as a venue for first-class cricket in future. So we're constantly reviewing, constantly have meetings, constantly might be a bit of an overreaction, so I might mislead you again, but we are once or twice through the year going to Southport and making sure that improvements are on the way. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be playing again at Southport. And
our age groups have played there for since the middle of August, I think, when they were able to play.
We've had 3 games there, I think, this summer. Southport have been very proactive in offering the ground for our games all through this summer, the last part of the summer, for age group and representative games. So we thank them for that.
Yeah, it's many more than 3 actually. They've had whole day training sessions there. They've played numerous games. So the Southport's provided us with great resource this year when we were really struggling in the usual places. So we really do appreciate that. Okay, next question is from Ross Pilling. In view of the Bob Willis Trophy groupings, would it not be better to keep them in the future as a 3-conference championship, with the winners contesting a second v third qualifier to play a first v second stroke third grand final? So a kind of eliminator structure like they have in Big Bash and IPL, I think. Each conference to play home and away, and possibly 6 of the other 12 other conference teams on a biannual basis, ensuring all counties would play each other at least every 2 years. If each game was allocated prize money as well as for each conference champion, it would keep interest for all sides. So, Paul, good question about structure of future competitive cricket.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good question, and I'm glad, Ross, that you're in favour ostensibly of the conference system, as we are at Lancashire, and we're very keen to see the experiment continue in 2021. It is a tricky situation, this conference scenario, and there are many forms that have been suggested. And as James was reading the question there, I could see the cogs whirring round, and we've got to try and make this as simple as we possibly can, but as effective as we can as well. And I think the system that is under consideration and hopefully will be adopted runs along similar lines to this year. 3 conferences of 6 which will be drawn, and then the top 2 in each conference will go through to a first division, the middle 2 to a second division, and the bottom 2 to a third division. They'll play 4 more games, so you get 14 matches. So there's no reduction in county cricket, so members and supporters will still have plenty of red ball cricket to watch. and then there will be a championship final. I think there's a bit of a debate at the moment as to whether the winner of the top division after 14 games should be crowned county champions. Then, of course, we've got the Bob Willis Trophy, which should be perpetuated, should obviously carry on, in my view. Maybe that should be the challenge match at the end of the summer. And I think that would be my personal choice, and I think the choice of a number of other directors of cricket around the country. So the conference system, yes, I think it encourages all 18 counties to be in the mix at the start of the summer. And I think it provides really good competition all the way through the year.
Okay, good. Okay, a question now from Adrian Wormsley, still on topic of cricket. Joss Butler is a fine cricketer, but he has not played in a Lancashire shirt for over 2 years now. What are the benefits of the club retaining him on its books? And is there a payroll cost, brackets retention fee or otherwise, so any cost, for not releasing him to go elsewhere?
Well, I think you'd agree that Joss is one of the finest cricketers in the world, an exceptional player, and probably in the top 5 white ball cricketers in the world at the moment. He's currently centrally contracted to England, and he is paid by them. Lancashire, we do utilise his services on a commercial and advertising basis to promote the club worldwide. And for that, he does receive a payment which we consider to be appropriate for the time that he's engaged. Whilst he's not played for us for some time, as you quite rightly say, he's still a part of our squad, and he would obviously be of huge benefit to the side and a huge attraction to members and supporters if he were to become available to play in 2021. And that's about it, as much as I can say on that one.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Paul. You're done.
Do you want me? I brought my own wipes here.
Oh, right, you wipe away.
I can.
I think Peter's telling you not to, Paul. Yeah.
Not allowed to do this.
No.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
Return to.
I'll use the chairman and chief executive's personal assistant.
Okay, we're just having a wipe down on the podium again. We've got one more question. It's quite short, so no matter how slowly I speak, I don't think I could make it last long enough for the podium to be completely cleaned in our COVID-secure environment, but we're getting there. Good. So, last question for tonight is from John Bushby. Given the importance of the hospitality side of the Lancashire cricket business, where do things currently stand? For example, the Safe Space initiative, that would be safe in one place, for virtual meetings, etc. So, Angela Hodson, you can take this one.
Okay, evening all. So, as Les said before, the club has built up a really successful conference and events hotel business over the last few years, delivering 9 million in revenue in 2019. The situation with COVID-19, the recent government announcement to extend the restrictions around meetings and events for a further 6 months was unexpected. It was devastating to the conference, exhibition and events industry as a whole, and therefore to us as Lancashire Cricket also. We do, however, remain positive that business levels will pick up in the second quarter of 2021. And we're working tirelessly behind the scenes to provide customer confidence in using us as a venue, developing creative solutions to generate alternative revenue streams for the hotel and for the venue, and to ensure we continue to nurture relationships with clients, agents, to ensure future business once restrictions are lifted. We recently launched our Safe in One Place campaign, which was designed to reignite the conference and events product and provide confidence to our clients that we were safe and ready to deliver events, having delivered cricket behind closed doors successfully over the summer. Based on the government's announcement, the next phase of the sales and marketing campaign to drive business will focus on 5 key areas. So small meetings, large meetings split across a number of our suites, outdoor events, hybrid events as demonstrated today, and driving business to the hotel also. This will be developed as a 4-phased approach to capture content and launch activity. And from a sales point of view, we are devising a series of showcase events targeted at key clients and agents, showcasing how the venue is set up to deliver events safely and to demonstrate how our hybrid solution can work. So I can assure everyone that despite the challenges, we're all working really hard behind the scenes to try and build up this business once again.
Okay, thank you, Ange. Okay, that finishes members' questions. Thank you, everybody, for sending those in. So I'll hand back to Les.
Okay, thank you. We've got one other item for any other business, which will be a lot shorter than that one, I think. And then we've got the close of the meeting and a surprise additional item to reward those members who've stayed the course. So for the final item of any other business, I'd like to invite Maurice Watkins to say a few words, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great privilege for me to have the opportunity of saying a few words about Geoffrey Schindler, who is leaving the board after 14 years of service. The words longevity and many years of excellent service will be used to acknowledge his time here, but they do not adequately address his efforts, impact, downright common sense when confronted with problems, and passion for Lancashire County Cricket Club. All these attributes have been immense, game-changing, and in reality, without a word of exaggeration, life-saving for our great club. Perhaps I could explain this with some biographical details outlining his contributions. Geoffrey joined the old committee in 2006 before subsequently retaining his position on the newly formed board in 2013. His efforts were crucial during the legal disputes with Albert Goubet and Derwent Holdings, particularly in working alongside Lee Morgan in liaising with legal counsel and our team. This ultimately led to a successful settlement following nearly 18 months of the club being on the brink of extinction. His was a major contribution in securing the future of the club. He was instrumental in rewriting the club rules in 2012, linked to the creation of the new board structure and nominations committee. He served as the original chairman of the new nominations committee and has been a long-standing member of the remuneration committee. He provided strong, ongoing legal support across the 2 years when the club was challenging the mis-selling of the interest rate swap. And as a member of the pension governance committee, he provided support on a number of legal issues that arose on pensions during his tenure. He regularly puts his hand up to help with difficult problems, and from my own perspective, he was a go-to person to work through difficult issues. Geoffrey, I'm sure I speak for everyone in thanking you for everything and wishing you well for the future. One thing I am sure of is that we'll see plenty of you at Emirates Old Trafford. And I would like to ask Geoffrey to step forward to receive a presentation. Thank you. Am I allowed to hand these to him?
He's behind you.
I'm behind you.
There you are, Geoffrey.
Yes.
Don't shake hands.
I want to say
Thank you very much.
Just to say to everybody, here, there or wherever, thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 14 years. I've every intention of enjoying the next 14 years, subject to various things, but I'm very grateful. It's been great fun. It's been challenging, it's been exciting, and above all, it's been about Lancashire County Cricket Club, of which I've been a member since the year 1949, when I became a junior subscriber, because we weren't allowed to be members until we became of age. Then I became of age at 21. I'm that old, but 18 is very young to me, and I've been a member ever since. I think I've seen a game here, at least a game here every year. This year is the exception, but I've seen it on stream, I've seen it on television, and I was delighted that even NASA said, "You've done wonderfully well this year." And to get that out of him was wonderful indeed. So thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed it all. It's been a great pleasure, and long live Lancashire. Thank you.
Well done, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Maurice, and thank you, Jeffrey. Now, remember, there was an additional item to come, so I'm now going to formally close the meeting. Meeting's closed. However, I'm now going to invite James Sheridan to ask a few questions of Keaton Jennings and of Glenn Chappell, who are here in the room with us, and as a reward for all those members who've stayed the course to the end of the meeting. Hopefully they'll get a bit of entertainment.
We need to sanitise. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Couldn't have written it better this way. Bear with us.
So we're just doing a quick sanitise, and Glenn and Keaton are going to join us on the stage, and hopefully enough people have stayed with us. I know if I'd started a Zoom call at 6 by now, there would be shouts from downstairs, "Dad, what's for tea?" And I'd be thinking Deliveroo. Okay, Keats, Glenn. How you doing?
You okay?
Good to see you.
You too. This one? Yeah.
So, just, Glenn, just reflection on the season. We had a pretty solid Bob Willis Trophy campaign, a bit different, just like everything else, and then got ourselves to semi-final of the Blast. What are your reflections on this year and everything that we've achieved?
Well, just quickly, Jeffrey, I don't expect the emails to dry up, so keep sending them messages of concern, congratulations, or whatever.
Thanks.
Always happy to get those. Yeah, regarding the season, I guess since we realised it was going to be a vastly different season to any other that I've been involved in, given financial and logistical problems, we realised that there was an opportunity to, hopefully, given eventually getting cricket underway, there was going to be an opportunity to watch the squad grow. And more so than any other season, we've been able to give opportunities to younger players. Even with there being less than half the cricket, we've seen 6 debutants, ranging from 19 to 22 or so. We fielded the youngest side ever in a county championship game. We were the second youngest team to qualify for the quarterfinals in the Blast. We've seen very young players grow on a match-by-match basis, putting in key performances. If we take the first game against Leicester, obviously disappointing result, but that had, I think, 3 debutants playing in that. And then the last game, a very similar team, and the level of performance had changed. And from a coaching perspective, that's really good to see. The standard of cricket we played at the start of the Blast, I thought winning 5, losing 1 was terrific, with obviously a young team. So we have to see it from a coaching perspective and a squad perspective, leading into next season, which hopefully will be a full campaign. We have to take massive positives from it. And in our opinion, more than any other county, I think we've shown that we've helped players develop, young homegrown players making strides in the game. So, that's from our perspective, that's what it's all about. Obviously, we want to win trophies, and hopefully this season will go a long way to ensuring that we do in the future.
Okay, brilliant. And Keaton, just from a player's perspective, I mean, you've had probably a hell of a roller coaster, because I think you might have been, were you in Sri Lanka with England when all the lockdown, or it felt like we were getting locked down, and you came back early, and then lockdown happened, then you were England bubble, and then you came back here. What on earth has that been like as a professional sportsman going through that?
Yeah, massively. Look, I mean, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I mean, being in Sri Lanka, I think there's only 1 or 2 cases at the time. So you fly back, kind of get rushed back home. Suddenly a week later, you're in sort of national lockdown, sort of under the question of whether you're going to play any cricket in the summer or not. So suddenly you're in an England bubble, in a very sort of surreal environment, walking through sort of temperature checks and bags over one side, and it felt very movie-like. And then to actually play some cricket during that, I suppose you can call it summer, was it 3rd or 4th of October, whatever it was yesterday. But it's been fantastic to get cricket on and actually compete. And I think from a player's point of view, to see guys grow, but then also to see guys that have played a couple of seasons have that exposure again, and sort of back up seasons has been quite nice. So, yeah, look, to play competitive cricket and to play it in the way that we have, and get to a finals day, was really special.
Okay, and from a Lancashire cricketer's perspective, I suspect it's not been ideal, because we were, I suppose, commercially, it was great for us to be able to do the behind closed doors cricket that we did. As we've all heard earlier in the meeting, it's been a lifesaver, really, from an economic perspective. But the downside to that is effectively Emirates Old Trafford was not available for our players to practice. How did that work? What were we able to do, and what was it like?
Yeah, look, I mean, Chester Borden Hall, actually, they were superb. Set up a sort of gym facility out there, nets, the square, they sort of rolled out the red carpet for us, really, which is absolutely fantastic. Obviously, it does take a strain on players in the squad with the amount of travel and times in cars. I can't remember where in the presentation earlier, but it was mentioned about Sam Byrne. I mean, he's been fantastic. I don't think he's had a day off in the last 6 months. I mean, he's been here, there, and everywhere and travelling around. So, look, I mean, from management all the way through to youngest players, guys have put their hand up and sort of gone above and beyond to try and make the season a sort of real big success. Whether it's travelling down sort of 3-4 hours away in a car by yourself, and sort of keeping each other going in the change room, trying to stay away from each other at times, which has been good fun. But no, look, it's been good to play some cricket and to play for Lancashire as a whole. And like I say, it would have been cherry on the cake yesterday to come away with a trophy. Wasn't to be. So hopefully guys have grown from this year. They've learned from the experience of being put under the pump on a finals day, and hopefully next year we can come away with a trophy.
Good. And Glenn, just thinking back to the start of the year, Keaton wasn't there because you were in Sri Lanka, I think, or headed that way, but people will have heard us start to talk about India, and you took a group of players out to Mumbai, didn't you? What was that like?
February in Mumbai, yeah. Went to a place called Reliance Park, where the Mumbai Indians train. So fantastic facilities, actually. Obviously a bustling city. Just got there in time to enjoy it. But yeah, great preparation for the players. It was supposed to be the stage before our pre-season tour to South Africa, and it was fantastic. The amount of cricket we got in I think the 5 or 6 days training we did, set us up for sitting down for 3 months. Yeah, so it was all going very well at one stage, and hopefully that sort of idea of winter training will continue into the future. I mean, God knows whether that'll happen this winter, but certainly in the years to come.
Yeah, it kind of brings me on to something I was going to ask about. Obviously, you mentioned we've seen some of our young cricketers get a chance to play in the first team. I suspect we're heading into a very unconventional winter where, I guess you said to me in the past, it can be tricky because so many guys are away, whether that's with international teams or they're going to play club cricket in Australia or whatever. What does winter look like for the squad? And just thinking in particularly about, I suppose, the fact that some of the young guys have got into the team and done well, and you're going to be looking for them to kick on. How do you make that work?
Well, we'll have to sit down and think about this as, from an individual player perspective. We're going to have a lot more players in the UK than normal because travel restrictions mean that they're stuck here, basically. With indoor training, you've got an issue around 4.5 months of indoor training. You don't want to be peaking in February. You really need a professional squad to be fully motivated and refreshed going into a season. However, we've got a lot of young players who will want to work on their skills and the technical stuff before Christmas. So the way I see it right now is we'll have some conversation with all the players about where their game's at, and work out some individual programs that will help them in the right way. But I would see squad training maybe waiting till after Christmas for 20 people to be in one room if we're allowed to be. There will be physical training starting from November, so that won't change. I mean, professional players are expected and they want to be fit all through the year. We don't have peaks and troughs like we did when I started playing. So the physical programs will go ahead, but the rest will be pre-Christmas will be individual based and hopefully in the players' best interests. And if anything, on a month-by-month basis, we'll try and review what's possible.
Okay, good. Keaton, you've been studying a bit, I think, over the last few years. Are you still going on that? How does that look?
I am, yeah. Stupidly or bravely, I'm not quite sure. Started up an MBA in June. So, yeah, finished off a business management degree during lockdown, and then, I started up an MBA. So I've got a couple of years of that ahead of me. Look, it's been a tough 9 years in terms of trying to balance, I suppose, life, study and a professional lifestyle. But hopefully sort of back into my career that can come to sort of fruition. And funny enough, it's made me enjoy my cricket a little bit more. Sort of takes the pressure off from a mental point of view, knowing that energy is also going elsewhere. Club's been fantastic in my development long term, which has been awesome. So look, I mean, it's been brilliant to kind of get that box ticked as such.
All right, good. And just probably to finish things off, just one of the objectives the club sets itself, you guys know this extremely well, is over the next 10 years to have an average of 7 homegrown players in our first team, men's and women's, which is something that we all buy into as a club. I'm going to be a bit politically incorrect and contrast that to the team that we played yesterday in the Blast, which I don't think they seem to have the same ethos, but that's up to them. Just curious how we ensure that we can deliver enough cricketers of the right standard through the system that we operate, and what challenges come with that, because that feels critically important if we're going to achieve that objective over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things you can look at there. Over the last couple of seasons, Paul and our coaches have started to look at the way the pathway, and especially the top end of the pathway, operates. Do the right work with the right players at an early stage, and hopefully improve that a little bit. The Lancashire pathway has always been strong. And you balance that with the players that you bring in, because we'll always need to bring players in, and as long as you bring the right ones with the right approach and the right team values, then they add a hell of a lot to a team. So yesterday we played 8 homegrown players in our side. It won't always be 8. Sometimes it might be 6 and 5, but sometimes it might be 9. So if we can have an average of 7, that would be right up there with any other team in the country. But at the same time, you're balancing it against having a successful team. So it's up to the homegrown players to be good enough. You can't fudge these things. So there's the challenge for kids coming through, because you don't want to make it look too easy. So it should be difficult to get into a Lancashire team, and hopefully we'll find a way to make that work.
Yeah. And the other playing objective is to win trophies, and we've got that written down as well, haven't we? So
yeah, we've got three objectives that are not easy to manage in one go, but that's what we try to do.
Okay, no, that's great, guys. Thank you for that. Hopefully an interesting chat for everybody who's joined in. If you're still with us, well done for sticking the distance. Hopefully that's a bit more interesting for you than maybe the AGM, but thank you for joining us. It's been great to see everybody, unfortunately not in the flesh, but have a good winter, and we really, as Daniel was saying, we really hope to see you here at Emirates Old Trafford in 2021. Thank you.